Hi guys, I'm back!
Yes, welcome back aboard good old Athena for what will hopefully be the last push before we can start cruising again.
Yeah, and of course we've had a little shore power issue that's popped up.
Yes, as of right now we can't actually connect to shore power. I think it has more to do with the voltage supplied on the dock than our electrical system, but we'll get back to that a little bit later in the video.
Yeah, and we're going to test out some of the changes and upgrades that Mess has made over the past couple months.
Yes, the air conditioning from Dometic should now be working, and also the genset should hopefully be working, so yeah, we'll also get back to that a little bit later in the video.
Yep, and lastly, we need to do some provisioning before we can leave Trinidad.
If you're new here, we're Ava and Mess. I spent 7 years on a somewhat extensive refit of our 1987 Trident Warrior sailboat named Athena. It was an oh glorious sanding extravaganza. We left Denmark and started cruising full-time, sailing down Europe's west coast, and then we had our biggest adventure yet, crossing the Atlantic. Now we're sanding and sailing our way around the world. A fair chunk of stuff has happened since the ending of the last video, so let's get you guys caught up real quick. We arrived back in Trinidad about 2 days ago and immediately got the boat ready to go back in the water. Even after having been a boat owner for over a decade, there is still something slightly terrifying about hauling out or splashing your boat, especially when the boat is your sole prized possession and only home. Fortunately, Peak's, where Athena has spent the last 6 months, is a very experienced yard with what appears to be modern and well-maintained equipment. Athena found her way from the back of the now empty yard down to the travel lift. Before coming here, I'd never seen one of these boat-moving doohickeys. I'm assuming the yard uses those to be able to stack the boats closer together than they would be able to with just using the travel lift. With experienced hands at work, Athena quickly found herself yet again dangling over water. At this point, I started to relax again, and as soon as the keel hit the water, all my worries were forgotten. She looks a little bit heavy on the starboard side, but we'll get back to why that is in a few minutes. Once free of the travel lift, we made our way across the bay to the one and only marina in this area, called Cruise Inn, which might very well be the fanciest marina we have ever stayed at. We pulled into slip 17 on B dock, and the dockmaster was there to help us with our lines. And now we find ourselves here in Cruise Inn with a very messy boat because Ava brought back a bunch of crap from the US. That's why we had that slight list to starboard.
Wow. Wow.
To be fair, not all of the crap here is Ava's crap. Some of it is my crap, but
Matt's crap.
No. This thing has Ava written all over. The miniature trash can. That's not something I would get, guys. We don't really though. But we have some cool doohickeys that I think you might find useful if you're on the boat, so we'll show you guys those a little bit later. The temperature is steadily climbing here inside of the boat, so my first instinct was to test the air conditioning as soon as we pulled into our slip here, but that is where we ran into that little shore power issue that Ava mentioned. Because Athena is a European boat, everything inside of the boat runs off of 220 volts rather than 110 or 115, so that means our electric galley here is 220 volts, our TV is 220 volts, all of the AC stuff is 220 volts. Unfortunately, these pesky Americans are insisting on using 110 or 115 volts, and seeing as Athena is now on the other side of the Atlantic, of course we'll have to adapt to that. Now, I was planning on doing that using an isolation transformer in our aft cabin. The big blue box there on the left is the isolation transformer, and the big blue box on the right there is our inverter charger. The isolation transformer has two features. For one, it protects against galvanic corrosion, which is a super awesome feature. And then two, it allows you to step up or step down voltage. So say you're feeding in 115 volts on one side of the isolation transformer, it can then spit out 220, 230 volts on the other side, and vice versa. So you can go from either voltage to either voltage. When I went to connect Athena's shore power to the thingy on the dock there, my world kind of shattered a little bit because there's a sticker in there that says 125 volts. I didn't think a nominal 125 volts was a thing. And then when I measured the output from the thingy, I got 129 volts. That nominal 125 volts has proven to be a little bit of an interesting challenge because the isolation transformer is apparently designed to work off of 115 and then boost that up to the 220, 230. But if we feed it the 228 we just saw, then it will output on the secondary side just a hair under 280 volts. But the isolation transformer is connected directly to the inverter charger, and that has a voltage range from 180 some volts up to 265 volts. So it just will not accept the 280 volts. I'm a big proponent of ending the day on a high note, and even though we don't have a shore power connection, the inverter is big enough that we can at least go ahead and test the air conditioning. The issue we've had with our air conditioning is 100% my fault. I ran a somewhat optimistic hose run to get coolant water to the air conditioning unit, and that had a bit of a high spot that was higher than the pump that supplies the air conditioning unit, and that is a giant no-no. And I knew that going in. I thought I was okay, but yeah, I wasn't. And now I've moved the through hull, so now the air conditioning should work. I can definitely feel cold air coming out of the vent over there, so so far so good. And we now have a nice generous amount of water flowing from the air conditioning. That is a lot better than with the old through hull, so yeah, I think it'll work. We've been running the air conditioning for about an hour now. It's nice and cool here inside of the boat, and we have not gotten any overheating alarms, so I hereby proclaim the air conditioner fixed.
Welcome to Mads and Ava's Cleaning Day of Fun, where we have to figure out where to shove, where to put away all these things neatly. Usually we're pretty good at putting things away when we get back to the boat, but because we focused on splashing Athena right away, we just decided to leave the mess and cleaning to future Ava and Mads, and here they are now. First, we had to clean out and organize the aft cabin so we could fit more junk in there, and we've just accepted that the aft cabin is our garage and storage area, but honestly, it's actually pretty handy for that. Then we had to tackle all the junk on the settee. This was a combination of things we brought back from the US, tools, and some leftover supplies from previous projects. And to be honest, I cannot even remember where we fit everything, but somehow we found a place for it all. One of the things that we are looking forward to this season is getting lots of diving in. We even brought back an underwater metal detector, so watch out, sunken treasure, here we come. But most importantly, we are now official Cressy ambassadors, and they hooked us up with all this sweet scuba gear, including new dive masks and watches, fins, BCDs, and plenty of other gear that we can't wait to show off to all the fish in the ocean. We were supposed to just organize everything and put it away, but then we got a little excited and took a break from the cleaning to start assembling our kits. But alas, we had to put all of our precious new gear away until we get to clearer waters. Next, it was time to bust out the vacuum and start cleaning. I like to remove everything off of every shelf, vacuum, and then give it a good wipe down. Right now, we are mainly using distilled white vinegar for cleaning. I don't love it, but we're just a little nervous that the products I was using before might have been the cause of the varnish peeling, so for now, we're playing it safe with the vinegar. Last, I moved into the galley, and even though I know Mads did his very, very best to cover everything and keep the boat completely dust-free, which I am extremely grateful for, unfortunately, dust is a sneaky bugger and finds its way into the smallest of crevices, including the space between the cabinet doors. So everything had to be pulled out and clean. But you know, that's the great thing about living on a 38-foot boat. There's only so much that can even fit in the galley to be cleaned, and really the entire boat. So, you know, cleaning day just isn't that daunting.
With the boat freshly tidied and cleaned, we thought we wanted to show you some of our crap that
Important crap.
Yes, important crap that caused the slight list to starboard. Keep in mind, this is but a small selection. We just thought we'd pick a few of the items you might find interesting.
Let me direct you over to the most exciting or most important pile of the two, which is the Ava pile. I'll start off with the thing that I am most excited about, which are these covers for our settee right here. I really like this fabric, but it is a little itchy when it's hot out and we're sweating. So I got these like nice soft covers off of Amazon. So I am really excited about putting those on. And next I got these little pump bottles for the shower. They're for shampoo, conditioner, and body wash. We're just gonna buy some bulk shampoo and conditioner when we go to PriceSmart. And these pump bottles just make it a lot easier in the shower when, especially if the boat's moving, you can just pump it out and Next, I brought back a bunch of these IKEA clothespins for when we're doing laundry and hanging them outside, because I do have a whole bag of clothespins, but the wooden ones, they have metal and are rusty, and as you can see, they get moldy, and the plastic ones, those have metal and they get rusty, but these IKEA ones, no metal. What I especially like about these is that they're just really tight, and then they have this little loop here that you can snap onto the line. It kind of locks the clothes in. Next, I brought back some Contigo water bottles. They are metal and insulated. We had plastic water bottles before, and those just sweat everywhere, and they do not keep the water cold for long at all. So these babies keep the water cold for 20 hours, so it says. We'll see. But we just like them because they have like a nice spout, they're easy to open, and you can lock them so nothing's gonna spill out. Next, let's clear the floor. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, it's my new beautiful rug for the galley. This one took a lot of convincing of Mads. No, I had to convince Mads to let me bring this back. But it was like the last thing we packed, because all I wanted is like a cushioned mat for the galley, and you can get them like everywhere in the US, but I have not been able to find them anywhere outside of the US where we've been. So I'm so excited. It has, you know, a non-skid bottom, and this is supposed to be easy to wipe off and clean, so very excited. And last, but certainly not least, I think I need to explain and defend the mini trash can, because this was actually supposed to be a part of Matt's birthday present, but he found it, and that's because he leaves in this little spot right here. He leaves all of his like little snack and candy wrappers, and drives me a little crazy. Usually I just take them and I'll like hide them under his bed pillow. But I thought, why don't I get him a little garbage can? And then, look, we can put that right there. He can just put his wrappers in there. So, let's see if he uses it.
So much for the girly pile over there. I hope the 3% female viewers enjoyed that section of the video. Now, onto the exciting pile. First up, we have this guy, which is a battery-powered air compressor of sorts. Let's open it up.
Actually, I had to sneak over to Mess's pile because I think we're both really excited about this.
Yeah, like I mentioned, it's a battery-powered air compressor. It's got a little regulator here and a long hose. I think this is going to be awesome, for instance, for scrubbing the hull.
Actually, I'm really excited about these two. We got these at the boat show, and they are inflatable fenders.
We already, of course, have a bunch of fenders, but you can never have too many fenders. And what's kind of cool about these is that when you're not using them, right, they fold up into almost nothing. And they're inflated using the exact same type pump we use for our dinghy. Now, seeing as now is the last time we're going to be at a dock for probably the next 6 months, after we've gone through the rest of the items here in the pile, let's get back to these. So Ava's pretty excited about these two things, but I don't think she's super excited about this guy, but I am. This is Zeus from Arco. It's a brand new external alternator regulator that seems pretty cool on paper, and I'm very excited to install this guy. Next up is a bunch of smaller stuff, like for instance there's a starter for our main engine here, not that the old one is broken, this is just a spare part. There's a new 2 terabyte SSD for our NAS box, so we have room for more footage. Some stainless steel screwdrivers, one of these fancy impact screwdriver thingies. There's a couple of new relays here with a built-in diode for our head. We'll get back to that in a second. And I'm really excited about this little guy. It's a regular air spray gunny thingy, but he's got a special plug here on the end so that he'll connect to the low pressure hose that normally connects to your BCD. That means we can take one of our scuba tanks, and then we've got a air spray gunny for inflating regular fenders or getting rid of dust, stuff like that. Last but not least, we have a partly disassembled 3D printer.
Yeah, and I'm really excited about this, but we are having a bit of a disagreement, or trying to figure out who originally wanted the 3D printer.
Yes.
Because
so
obviously Mads has wanted a 3D printer, I'm sure, since they came out.
I mean, the one guy is a gadget nerd and a software developer.
Yes, but I like to craft, and I have
True,
found,
true.
and what I originally started thinking about was because I wanted to stamp some leather for like the Sail Life logo into leather for a project that we're going to be working on.
Yep.
And I was looking on Etsy for these stamps, and I was like, oh my gosh, these people, if I was going to buy a stamp from someone, they're just 3D printing them. And I was like, what if we just got a 3D printer?
Yeah, so, I mean, we've somehow ended up in this parallel universe where my wife actually thinks it's a really great idea to get the 3D printer, so I'm super happy about that. This was kind of the highlight of what we brought back. Of course, Ava also had a ton of clothes, but
Okay.
which is actually the reason why the boat was listing to starboard.
Oh my gosh. No. But, and I think this is the first time we haven't had any like boat parts that like we've needed for an emergency. Like usually, like, you know, I've flown back with 2 autopilots. I've had to fly with sails. So
yeah.
that's why I'm so excited that I could bring back something like as simple as a rug, because usually there's not even enough room to bring back that. So yeah.
True, a rug or a 3D printer. We have put our Dan Fender classic Fenders through the ringer over the last 3 years. Like for instance, this one stormy night in Portugal that I just so happened to catch on camera. We have 6 of these gray Fenders. We also have 1 gray ball fender, and then we have 2 of these giant white ball fenders that we typically don't inflate unless we know we're going to be somewhere where we'll need them. Even when these are almost all the way deflated, they still take up a lot of space, and they're kind of rigid, so you can't really compress them into anything. So yeah, no matter what you do, they just seem to take up a lot of room, and they're also a little bit heavy. When I saw the Fender Teex stand at the Annapolis Boat Show, my first reaction was these would be awesome to have as a supplement to our existing Fenders, something that you can easily fold up and store inside of the boat. This is what the Fender Teex Fender looks like inflated. Now on this Fender we've got the optional cover on here that allows it to be used sideways and also adds a little bit of extra protection. That optional cover looks like this, and it simply just slides onto the fender after you've inflated it. When the Fender Teex Fender is not inflated, it barely takes up any room, and it's also super light. The Fender Teex Fenders come in all kinds of sizes and shapes and colors, and you can even get your logo custom made onto this cover here. We have a specially made cover on order, and that is going to look a little something like this. Down the line, I hope we can replace our big ball fenders here with Fender Teex fenders. That is going to take up a lot less room inside of the boat when we're not using them. Inflating this guy was super easy. I just used our regular foot pump, the one we use for the dinghy also, and it took, I mean, less than a minute to get it all pumped up. Now, in terms of getting the air out again, that should also be super easy. Just a quick little comparison here with the optional sideways cover on the fender. Once it's deflated, it does take up more room than without the optional sideways cover on there, but yeah, I think the sideways cover is worth it. I know I said that we'd get back to these relay we showed you in the Mads pile just a few minutes ago, but we will save these until next week's video. Now, I got some odd news and some slightly disappointing news. The odd news is the shore power gods have seemingly decided to bless us with shore power. I don't know what went wrong earlier in the week. We'll dig into it a little bit more next week and see if we can figure out what's going on. And of course, shore power means sweet, sweet, luxurious air conditioning. Now, fun little side note that I noticed, as soon as the Quattro got connected to shore power and it synced to the 60 Hertz, the display here must have sensed that, because after that happened, it switched to Fahrenheit instead of Celsius. So that's kind of a fun little feature. Something that is not as fun is the Fisher Panda situation. If you know, we've had some issues with our Fisher Panda genset, and we swapped the part while we were up on the Heart. I tried running it earlier in the week as soon as we got back in the water. It appears that there are still some issues. We had a couple of local mechanics swing by earlier in the week. They couldn't quite figure out what was wrong. We have an electrician swinging by tomorrow to get a different set of eyes on it. And also Fisher Panda US and Fisher Panda Germany are both back on the issue. So yeah, hopefully we can figure something out. But I don't think we're gonna stay here in Trinidad just to fix the genset. We're not gonna let that delay our cruising plans. But hopefully we can figure out what's wrong.
Next week we have to just do some provisioning. Well, a lot of provisioning, bend down the sails, just tie up a few loose ends.
Yeah, just a couple of small things, but it shouldn't be too bad. So after next week we should be ready to start heading north. And yeah, on that hopeful note, we'll end this week's video here, and we hope to see all you guys back here aboard Athena next week for yet more DIY fun. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget,
if you've enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like.
See you!
I don't usually say that whole thing.
Oh.
I usually just say, if you've enjoyed this video, or I just say, please remember to leave a like.
Okay, okay.
Actually, I can't remember what I say. Do I usually say the whole thing? Next we got some IKEA insulated. No.
IKEA?
Nope.
Like when, right, there's a cadence to it.
Okay.
But you don't have to have my cadence, but it just needs to
And
flow.
lastly,
right? You know what I mean?
okay, okay. And lastly, we need I can't not sound like you.